Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Book Talk. Today, we have with us an enthusiastic youngster who is a professional writer and is passionate about reading books. He is pursuing law and is a published author. So, today, we talk to him about his book, Circling the Sun. Hi, Tanmay.
Hi there. Hi. Uh,
Hi.
Thank you so
Wel-
much for the
wel-
introduction. Uh,
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
So I've read the book, and Tanmay, I must say it's really amazing. I would like to start by asking you about the cover of the book. It's like a painting. So did you design it yourself?
Um, okay, so basically there are two covers of the book. So originally when I
Uh,
first released it, edition one had
mhm.
this cover. If you can see,
Right.
most of the ebook formatting of the book does have this one, and
Okay.
the physical book, the second edition, has this cover,
Mhm.
which is more
Ah,
minimalistic.
right.
I'll talk about the process of how both the covers were created. So back
Mhm.
in the day, I was experimenting with art from the artificial intelligence. It had just
Okay.
come into being as a very new thing in the market, and it had
Mhm.
become freely available.
Mhm.
So I thought, why not try and make art for something that I'm not good at drawing at all. Like I can't draw to save my life. I tried designing for a couple of years. I sucked at it, and then I sort of found AI art, and then a lot of my ideas became much more visual. They became much more cinematic, I'll say. I could envision
Mhm.
them better because anytime you
Mhm.
sort of see an image from words, right, you feel
Mhm.
more closer to it.
Right.
So regarding this first edition cover, if you can
Okay.
see the camera, yeah, it is.
Yes, we can
So
see it. Mhm.
it's a very simple cover with
Mhm.
like a sun painted in the background as a single stroke of a brush, with
Oh,
multiple people just walking towards the sun behind the mountains.
oh.
And that sort of resonates with me regarding like
Mhm.
people trying to find sort of like a glee or sort of like a joy in their life throughout all the suffering around us, throughout all the grief or sadness that we hear all about. People want to find that one silver lining, like that something just might be okay in this really cruel and tiring world. So I
So
believe that
true.
the first cover denotes that,
Mhm.
which is more of a thematic setting than that of a direct
Mhm.
representation of the book. Now,
Right.
whereas the
Right.
second cover, which is this one, the
Mhm.
more minimalistic black one, you can see one
Mhm.
of the three characters from the book Vincent on the cover, where
Yes.
most of the story kind of revolves around him. You've got two other characters as well, but most of
Mhm.
the impact in the tale is
Mhm.
regarding it. Now we'll come
Mhm.
come back to that later, obviously, with more questions related to the character. But
Yes,
yeah,
I have some
more,
questions about that character also. Right.
yes. So yeah, this is a
Mhm.
more of a character-driven cover, and the
Mhm.
original one is more of a theme-related cover.
Can you give us a summary of the novel?
Yes. Okay, so when I wrote Circling the Sun, I had just come out of writing like a bunch of short stories. I used to write
Mhm.
earlier back when I was in school, but all of them was just, nonsensical fiction. Like it didn't make much sense. The language was really bad. And yeah, and then I kind of, left writing for a couple of years, and then COVID struck. I had
Okay.
absolutely nothing to do, and, like no one to tell my stories to. And then I came
Right.
across like this online contest of writing short stories. It was a weekly thing.
Okay.
So every week they used to give us a theme, and you have to write a short story under 3,000 words regards to
Mhm.
that, in regards to that theme.
Mhm.
And then I wrote it, and week on week happened, and I wrote short stories. And after finishing that, I thought like, how difficult would it be to write a novel? And then I
Mhm.
started on Circling the Sun. Circling the Sun
Oh.
used to be as a song. There is
Mhm.
this small band called Canyon City. They released an album which is titled Circling the Sun, and that is where the title came from. What I wanted to explore was like a introspection of me as a person, or who I was during that time, during those years, right? When COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I believe like the three main there so basically there are three main characters in the book. You've got an author who is Olivier, you've got a teacher who is Venus, and you've got a student who is Vincent. All of them are sort of parts of me that I wanted to explore. An author of who an author was someone who I kind of already was, but also wanted to be. A teacher or a professor, someone who teaches, influences young minds. That is also who I wanted to be. But who I was a student during that. I had
Right.
no real power over words. I had no real influence over anyone. And then you kind of then dive into the whole existential philosophy of what really is your purpose in life. Like, what mark are you leaving after going away? And then I felt that will I be remembered after I go? And the thing is, people, let's say people like Shakespeare, like H.P. Lovecraft, like Mary Shelley, all of these are like century old authors. Like they shouldn't be remembered. But they are because of their stories and of the things that they've created, of tales that have still lingered on from so many years, so many centuries. And they are still
True.
prominent to this day. Circling the Sun's plot revolves around how these three characters live their own lives and how their stories kind of intertwine with each other. From a distance, you may feel these three are completely different individuals. They are miles apart. But then,
Yeah.
the more closer you go to them, the more you see them and how they act and how they feel and how they sort of connect to people around them. It makes them really similar to each other. And that is what Circling the Sun is about. It's a slice of life. It's about the story of three people still being so distant, like distance away from each other, and yet still connected.
Right. Yes, I felt the same when I was reading the novel that these three characters are so different from each other, but yet there are so many lines which are similar to each other. So that was very interesting.
Thank you.
So, coming to your character of Vincent, so in your preface, you have already mentioned that Vincent was born, how he was born, I mean, this character. So, please tell us more. It is very interesting.
Right. So during that phase when I was writing Circling the Sun, or more than writing, I was plotting the story of Circling the Sun. I watched this really beautiful animated film, Loving Vincent. It is on Amazon Prime. It's the whole film is made out of oil colors. Like all of them are oil paintings, each and every frame. It tells the story of Vincent van Gogh, the great painter, the great crazy painter, when he was alive, through the lens of his brother, through the lens of someone who loves him, someone who wants the best for him, which is Theo van Gogh. And through that sort of film, through that sort of influence, I took up reading a book called Letters by Vincent van Gogh. It's a very thick book by Penguin Collection. I think it's available for free online as well.
Okay.
And the great thing about Vincent van Gogh was that even in his insanity, whatever he did make sense. It dove very deep into the human psyche of why we are the way we are. And that is how the character of Vincent in Circling the Sun was born. Like heavily inspired from Vincent van Gogh. And that is
Yeah.
also surprisingly how Vincent's very close friend Patrick was born as an inspiration from Theo van Gogh, Vincent van Gogh's brother.
Okay.
And you may see
Right.
Vincent and Patrick almost together all the time in Circling the Sun. And one of the most impactful friendships, one of the most impactful relationships, I'll say, throughout the book
Yes.
is between those two
Yes,
friends.
right. Handwritten letters seem like an age-old tradition, Tanmay, but you have revived it in your book. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, you're very welcome. Uh, yeah, so
So,
I was writing Circling the Sun, as I said again, Letters to Vincent Van Gogh was a huge inspiration, the book. So I wanted one bit of the book to be an epistolary novel, like storytelling done in a very different form of way, storytelling done not through your traditional means, where like a narrator goes on talking about the events happening, or like a first person perspective where a character talks about himself.
Right.
I wanted to tell a story through a different medium, which became through letters. Most of the journey that Olivier and Venus have throughout the book, their relationship and their budding friendship, come through letters. Just like, long monologues, long letters of who they are and why they are, and how, despite being so different to each other, they still connect, even as friends, as acquaintances, as maybe even colleagues. And then
Correct.
as it progresses, you kind of find out the connection between a professor and an author who are generations apart.
Right. Tanmay, you have written this novel on the cusp of your adulthood. So, how was the experience?
Right. Uh, yeah, adulthood. It's a it's a phase where, like the carelessness or the simplicity of teenage life dies. Right. Adulthood sort of brings new problems. It brings more complications into your life. It teaches you how to, be an accountable human being. When you're a
Right.
teenager, you kind of can do things that are simply inconsequential. Most of the things that you do won't exactly have bigger consequences. But as an adult, things become more big, they become more happening. Most of the factors around you, they are bigger than yourself. And you kind of have to accept that you are just a small piece in this world who make up a big, big picture. And sort of, accepting that reality where most of the things you do will not matter. They won't, people won't get it. People won't understand it. People won't care about it. And basically, that is a simple insecurity that I believe all the people who are on the verge of adulthood deal with inside.
Right. Yes.
It's it's about being confident in who you are, but then the whole process of finding out who you are as a person is important as well. It's
Yes.
a very tragic thing that I still believe being 18 is still too young to be an adult. You've just got out of puberty. You have just finished your college or finished your high school basically,
Right.
and now you're kind of just thrown into the world and just now make up a good adult life where you are happy, where you're making money, where you are carrying the responsibility upon your shoulders.
Correct.
And I feel that the system should be a bit better. It should be a bit more, you know, freeing. It should be a bit relaxed. Because
Relaxed. Yes.
the more you kind of find out about yourself, the more introspection you can do, the more self-aware you become. You become a better person just by letting yourself be who you are.
Correct.
And getting to that point is the tough process.
Correct. Right.
So that is what I felt, when I wrote Circling the Sun, like a struggle of feeling like I've gotten really old that represents me through the character of Olivier. And yet still,
Yes.
I'm just 18. Like in my mind, I may be really old, but in reality, I'm not. I'm
Right.
still very young. And that is represented through Vincent. And Venus is sort
Right.
of like a nice midway carrier between these, the heart and the brain.
Correct. You talk about the future option of technological advancements, like holding hands through screens or hugging to ease pain. So, was this the effect of pandemic?
And yes, of course, it was the effect of the whole COVID-19 pandemic because during that time, things were really tough for everyone on Earth. I mean, it's just not me or, all of my friends or all of my family. The thing
Mhm.
is, in COVID, everyone sort of found themselves really alone with their own thoughts with nothing to do. Because what I've
Right.
noticed, most of the people kind of have their jobs, they have their things that they do. And that sort of distracts them from the reality or from understanding who they are. The thing about COVID was that it made them sit with themselves in the silence and
Mhm.
contemplate their own thoughts.
Mhm.
And that's a really dark place that you can be. Because if you yourself don't know who you are,
Mhm.
then how will you figure it out?
Correct.
I think everyone dealt with it. Everyone dealt with it in their own ways. People
Right.
spiraled. People cried. They got really sad. Some people enjoyed, enjoyed throughout COVID. The ones who were privileged,
Mhm.
you know, they.
Yeah.
I was one of them. I don't like talking to people much. I'm a full-on introvert. That's why COVID
Mhm.
was really nice for me, where I used to just, binge watch shows and eat whatever food I could find and just, stay in the house whole day. That was sort of nice for me. But again,
Mhm.
even a person like me, even someone who is not much social, I still
Mhm.
crave like physical
Oh,
affection from, let's say, friends, from family, from anyone.
right.
And the
Mhm.
whole issue of the pandemic was regarding distancing yourself from each other.
Mhm.
That's what the whole point was. And I felt it to be
Mhm.
really tragic that we cannot touch each other, because sort of touching each other, hugging someone, holding hands, it's a very deep form of intimacy
Mhm. Right.
that can be shared with only a few people. But it definitely can be shared, and it invokes the feelings of happiness and joy and like things that you need to keep on living, right?
Mhm.
You
Correct.
may find your emotions in something like a show, in a story, in a song. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, if you don't feel something physically, if you don't feel the touch of another human being, I mean, where do we then draw the line? So
Correct.
that's why in my preface, I believe,
Mhm.
I wrote this line
Yeah.
about hoping that we can find like a virtual method of,
Mhm.
having physical affection for those who crave physical affection.
Right.
And I don't know
I
if we're
found it.
making progress on it,
Yes.
but yeah, that was the whole reasoning behind it.
Tanmay, your writing appreciates various forms of arts. Like you have mentioned a lot of music, literature, and of course, paintings. So I found this amazing throughout the novel. So, is this the influence of Van Gogh or any other painters or musicians?
Yes, so um, most of my writing gets inspired from music. Music, I believe, it's
Hmm,
a huge, huge part of my life. Like,
interesting.
I'll say it's the biggest part of my life, because recently, so what Spotify, the music listening app, does is that every
Hmm,
month it kind of shows you statistics to how many days or how many minutes you listen to music to throughout the whole month. And when I was
Okay.
checking my last month of listening, which is August, I listened to like a
Mhm.
solid, 8.8 thousand minutes, which roughly leads to 5.5 days. Like, I straight up
Wow.
listened to music for 5.5 days. And yeah, that was
Fantastic.
a big revelation for me. It was a big thing. And it just kind of
Mhm.
showed that, music really makes me who I am. Music makes my stories
Mhm.
what they are. I have a very
Mhm.
interesting process when it comes to writing, is that all of my titles, whether they are chapter titles,
Mhm.
part titles, or even the titles of the book, all of them
Mhm.
come from music. All of them come from songs. Like, all of them are already music. You may have heard of them, or you may not have heard of them. Circling the Sun came way through this little band called Canyon City. It's a very
Oh, okay.
small young band, and they
Mhm.
write sort of, like folk music, I'll say, like folk semi rock music. And
Mhm.
those songs really inspired me to write Circling the
Mhm.
Sun. But inspiration can really only take you so far, like one piece of inspiration. So there are multiple influences that kind of made Circling the Sun what it is. As I said,
Yeah.
Vincent Van
Yeah.
Gogh and letters to his brother, to his lover, to himself
Yeah.
even. they inspired the character of Vincent. Olivier was someone who was influenced by my personal life, by what experiences I had gone through. Venus was someone who I wanted to be, someone who, despite all the struggle that is happening, still rises up every morning to be a better person.
Yeah,
So yeah,
amazing.
there are many influences,
Yeah,
personal and regarding art.
yes. And I think with the influence and with the inspiration, you have taken a lot of hard work to weave them together.
Yes.
And that's really amazing.
Thank you.
Tanmay, I was amused in one particular scene when you mentioned a gramophone and Instagram in the same paragraph. So I was taken aback, only to find out that it was a dream.
Yeah.
So,
The thing is, circling
ye-
the sun sort of. Sorry, were you saying something?
yes, I was saying that I found this throughout the novel that you have surprised the reader quite a bit, and that is interesting.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'll say circling the sun does have some plot twists, some heavy plot twists. I won't get into it because let's keep this spoiler free. But yeah,
Totally.
uh, the connection about Instagram and gramophone and a gramophone is basically sort of like an ode to the past, but also regarding the vision to the future.
Mm, mm,
Because we really cannot disregard the past just
mm.
because who we are in the present, because the past is what makes us as a society who we are right now, and what we are
Right.
right now will define us in the future.
Mm, mm,
So a gramophone, which is an
mm.
ancient, no, I won't, let's not say ancient, but when a gramophone is like an old sort of instrument of listening to music, because back then, uh, without live music, how could you really listen to
Mm.
a song that has already been recorded? It was the
Right.
gramophone. But now you can have music play literally at the tap of your finger. Like you press one button on your phone and music just starts playing. Any song
Yeah.
you want throughout the world. It's, I mean, we have normalized it, but I still feel that as an anomaly. It's a
Yes.
really interesting place to be in right now with all the technology around us, with all the options, with all the you know tougher processes that have become much
Mm,
much more simpler now. Back then,
mm,
when someone wants to listen to
mm,
music, they would rather have to attend a concert or pay someone to play it on the jukebox or gramophone.
mm.
Whereas now,
Right.
even on Instagram, like any random story, any random post, you can have like your
Yeah.
sorry, pardon me, you can have music playing,
Mm, mm.
and yeah, I think that's the great part
Yes,
of it.
that's true. In connection to what you mentioned just now, there is a lot of talk about nostalgia and also the urge to explore the unexplored in your book. So that is also quite interesting and it is quite intriguing for a reader also because the reader also gets transported back and forth in nostalgia and also the urge to explore. So
Yeah,
thank you for doing that.
you're very welcome. The thing about nostalgia, like sort of living in your own past or living in a place or living in a memory that has already happened, we kind of find
Right.
comfort in the things that we already know and we fear what is going to happen. It's a sort of anxiety that is built into us regarding, being afraid of the future, being scared of what if this doesn't turn out the way it should. But the truth is that you kind of have to adapt with change. Things are always going to change. And there is nothing you can do about it except be comfortable with it or accept, be
Absolutely.
moving along with it.
Right.
It's the feeling of nostalgia is nice, but it's not going to move you ahead. You can sit there, you can, think about what you've done in the past or what events have occurred in the past and make yourself feel really nice and happy with those sort of moments, but then they are not affecting to what you are doing right now, and they are certainly not going to be affecting to what is going to happen ahead, because let's be honest, history is going to repeat itself. uh, You yourself are gonna make the same mistakes that you've always done, because that's life. That is
Yeah.
just how it is. And
Mhm.
I like to believe that
Mhm.
most things, no matter how bad they get, it's all gonna be okay one day or the other. Things are gonna
Yes.
work out and you're gonna be
Mhm.
fine. So
Mhm.
yeah, I believe that's the nice seesaw balance of how the
Mhm.
process of nostalgia works in, and yeah, like the feeling of exploring new ventures.
True. Having talked about the book, I would like to ask about the challenges that you faced while writing this.
Right. So thing is, I think the book, I
Mhm.
believe, is divided into 7 or 8 parts. I think it's 8 parts. Yeah, 8 parts.
Mhm.
So the
Yeah.
thing is, until part three or the first half of part four,
Mhm.
I sort of rambled on with the characters and with the events, sort of, you know,
Mhm.
how the ideas were coming to my head, or how
Mhm.
things were sort of unraveling in my own life. And I sort of put
Mhm.
them in the book and see where the plot went. But the thing is, I sort of reached a point where I was stuck.
Mhm.
All of the things I
Mhm.
wanted to explore had already been explored, and the book was only half done. It did not feel satisfactory at all. Like the
Mhm.
end that I had already written felt, you
Mhm.
know, it felt boring. It felt as if nothing has changed at all. Everything's still the same.
Mhm. Right.
Then I thought I was the kind of writer who sort
Mhm.
of just went along the way, just saw where the story goes, and wrote along with it. But
Okay.
then I understood that that is not who I was. I was someone
Mhm.
who needed to plot every single chapter, every single part as to what would
Mhm.
happen in it. Very,
Right.
meticulously and very,
Meticulously.
yeah, in a very detailed sort of form.
Mhm.
So if you see the writing in my book, the first 4 parts are very disjoint. They are not exactly very linear.
Mhm.
Whereas the last 4 halves, the second part of the book,
Mhm.
is when the plot really thickens, and that is when
Yes.
things make so much more sense as to why the
Mhm.
first 4 parts were like this, the way they are.
Right. So,
And I
frankly,
believe, hmm,
as a reader, I did not realize this, what you are saying. Maybe as a writer, since you went through that process, you know it. But as a reader, I did not realize.
I think I
I,
did a great job then. Because
I thought it's written in a one flow kind of thing.
that's really nice you thought of it that way. But the thing is, that's what writing is. You kind of, write the way you do, you face all the challenges, you face all the problems, and then when you rewrite it, or you tackle the second draft, you make it look like as if you already knew this is how it's gonna happen, and you were like, this was my
Correct.
plan all along.
True.
I'm
Yeah,
glad
I
I'm
mean, the reader will never know the story of the
exactly
author, what he has
exactly.
done for it.
Or
You
usually
are
what
saying.
I've seen with friends who are also writers around me, they struggle with
Mhm.
making the plot. Thankfully,
Okay.
I have never faced such a problem, because music
Mhm.
has inspired me. Song titles or album titles, they've really inspired me to make the plot before the plot
Mhm.
even sort of evolves.
Yeah.
I kind of get like a list of songs. I write them down into chapter names, and then
Mhm.
I decide what the plot is going to be related to the title of the chapter. So
Mhm.
the traditional writing process is basically you write down your story and then you title the chapter according to that.
Mhm.
Whereas mine is the exact opposite. I
Mhm.
name the chapter first and then I write the plot.
Okay.
So yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Mhm.
So those are my main issues when I was writing Circling the Sun.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you for sharing.
Welcome. Um, well, I think Circling the Sun is a really introspective book, for me at least, as an author.
Mhm.
It
Okay.
is my first novel and like my first long form project, which kind of gave me confidence to write even more bigger and more deeper books, I'll say.
Mhm. Mm.
The book that I wrote after Circling the Sun is called Cloud Shapes. It's a small novella,
Okay.
and I believe Cloud Shapes has the sort of feel or the energy of Circling the Sun in a very relaxed, calm manner. Something that you would read at a beach, or something that you would read while traveling, because that is
Mm.
the kind of book it is. Circling the Sun has inspired a lot of my writing, because I'm at heart, I'm a contemporary writer.
Okay.
Currently, I am working on a fantasy novel series. The first book
Wow.
is going to release this year in November. It's called Shoes for Men and Beasts.
Great.
But Circling the Sun still influences the writing that I'm doing now. Circling the Sun, I believe, was released back in like 2020, if I'm right. Yeah,
Mm.
in 2020. And still 4 years later, it's Circling the Sun's inspiration is still so evident in my writing, because at heart I'm still a contemporary writer. I may be writing fantasy, I may be writing horror, I may be writing um, something like science fiction, but you will still see that bits of literary fiction, or writing that just like you would have like a bird's eye view on the writing, and then all of a sudden it changes and you are inside the character's head.
Well,
All those sort of formatting and introspective facts like that, that is what make me who I am as a writer. And I believe
mhm.
Circling the Sun plays a huge role in my writing journey so far.
Oh,
and
it's very close
and
to your heart, it seems.
it, it,
Yeah.
it is very close to my heart. And yes, thank you so
Great.
much for having me over. This has been really
Great.
nice talking about my book.
Thank you so much for joining. And this was a great discussion. I came to know a few things after talking to you, after reading the novel.
I'm really glad.
And wish you all the best for your upcoming novel. It's a novel or novella, or
It's a
what
novel.
is
It's
it?
a really big novel, I'll say that. It's the biggest
Okay.
I've written.
Okay. Great, great. Okay, then see you again with a new book.
See you soon too. Thank you so
Yeah,
much
see
for
you
having me
soon.
over once again.
Bye bye. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you everyone for joining me in conversation with Tanmay. See you again in the next episode of Book Talk. Till then, have a good day. Bye bye.